So right now, there are no more UFC events, and there are a lot of unlikable fighters in the UFC, from the Adesanyas to the Bilals, so get ready to trash me in the comments, cause I'm about to brutally trash some of you all's favorite fighters. Cause in this video, I've decided to go over the UFC fighters I dislike the most in every division, and let's start with flyweight. So first of all, flyweight is a little tricky, cause the guy I dislike the most got cut, and I'm of course talking about the half-guard camper himself, Muhammad Mukayev. And besides his boring style, he's pretty scummy, I'd say. Like, he uses religion to jump Manil Cap, trick them out. He was like, oh, let's take picture so we show Muslim peace, and then jumped him. And then he also beat Manil Cap in their official fight, which did not sit well with me, because Manil Cap is one of my favorite fighters at flyweight, the based one himself. So ever since he left, there's been a hole in flyweight, man. It's been a hole in the flyweight division. There's no one to hate on. No division is complete without a very dislikable fighter. So Dana, please resign this guy. But besides him, there's no one I really dislike at flyweight that much. So let's move on to bantamweight. And at bantamweight, there are a lot of unlikable fighters and likable fighters. So some honorable mentions are Peyton Talbot, for his personality of course, O'Malley, for his personality of course. They're both very entertaining to watch in the cage. But the one who takes the cake here is Merab, at least for me. And where should I start with this guy? We can talk about his style first. His style sucks, man. He fights like a takedown goblin, and he only shoots takedowns. And he's not even that good of a grappler. He has bad control on the ground, average ground and pound, no submission ability, no finishing ability overall. And you might ask me, the all-knowing MMA realist, how is this guy champion? And my answer to that is cause he just shoots takedowns, man. It's all he does. He doesn't beat his opponents. He prevents them from beating him by constantly shooting takedowns. And the only thing his opponents can do is defend in that scenario. And that makes him super boring to watch. And what this guy did to one of my all-time favorite fighters, Petr Yan, is absolutely unforgivable. Not to mention his lame personality, cringe skits, and the ducking of Umar Nurmagomedov. And you can hear how inbred he is when he talks. He just yaps on the mic. He's like, I come here, I fight with best fighter in the world, and I want to thank Aljamain Sterling for being in my corner. And I come here and fans show me so much love. I want to thank everyone in the crowd. And then I want to thank Matt Serra too for being in my corner. He just keeps going, man. Super boring to listen to. And he also yaps about stuff that's completely irrelevant. Like, no one cares if Aljamain Sterling is in your corner, bro. I can't stand all these people online who pretend that his skits are somehow funny. They're super boring. They're literally made for 12-year-olds. And it's also so hilarious how he's literally having a mental breakdown for having to fight Umar. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a huge fan of Umar myself, but I am a big fan of inbred on inbred violence. So I'm happy that Umar did get the title shot, and I'm looking forward to that fight. And it's also very funny how all the Merab fans are now backing Umar, cause he never had any real fans to begin with. All the hardcore fans, quote unquote, were only rallying behind him cause they wanted O'Malley to lose. And then they defended his boring fighting style, being like, no, it's actually super entertaining to just watch a guy holding another man down and kneeing his thigh. Like, I'd rather watch that than watching two elite kickboxers go at it. And to be fair, I get why people wanted to see O'Malley lose, because he is a representative of everything that's wrong with modern society, but at least he has an amazing fighting style. And I almost forgot to mention another thing. Merab used to be a so-called Ian Gary for the title. When O'Malley flatlined the Oscar winner Aljamain Sterling himself, Merab refused to fight for the title. He wanted to sit out and beat up on contenders until Sterling got the rematch. He was basically gatekeeping the belt for Sterling, so Sterling can be champ and he can just sit and watch from the sidelines. What an Ian Gary, bro. But I've talked about this guy enough, let's move on to featherweight. And featherweight is also kind of tricky for me because there's not really anyone I dislike that much, but if I had to pick one, it would be Movsar Evloev. First of all, don't get me wrong, like Merab, like Muhammad Mukayev, he is a very good fighter. He's undefeated, but he's super boring. And he's another one of those half guard campers, literally. Barely attempts any submissions, not any crazy ground and pound. His record shows that he's won all of his fights in the UFC by decision. So overall, just a pretty boring fighter, and it's very rich of him to offer Lopez a rematch after Lopez worked his way to the top in less than 2 years. And I guess an honorable mention here is the actor Aljamain Sterling, the guy who basically won the belt at bantamweight by acting. And don't get me wrong, he has great wins, one of the GOATs at bantamweight, but he had a very fluky title reign. But I get that it's not Aljamain's fault, but what his fault is that he's a very boring fighter. He camps on the back instead of half guard, and also acted his way to the bantamweight belt. So I think he's a strong contender to be in this video, but let's move on to lightweight. And in lightweight, there are also a lot of contenders. We have Gamrot and Michael Chandler, mainly for me. I think Gamrot has a super boring fighting style, positional grappler type beat, and as you guys might know by now, I'm just a top tier level casual. I just don't find that fighting style entertaining. And the guy also doesn't really have any personality. Now when it comes to Michael Chandler, you guys might be a little bit surprised because, you know, he's this motivational speaker type guy, you know. He doesn't really say anything bad, he acts very classy, and he has a very entertaining style to watch. Always has wars inside the cage. However, he's a very dirty fighter, especially after seeing what he did to Charles in their last fight. He knocked him down in the final round and started raining down forearm strikes to the back of the head of Oliveira. And strikes to the back of the head are no joke. People in boxing have literally gotten vegetabilized from those, and it's not like he threw a few. He showed no mercy to the back of Oliveira's head, and as a huge Oliveira fan, I can't let that slide. Plus, after the fight, he brought it up with Ariel on his show, and the guy didn't even own up to it. He said they were legal according to the rules or something like that, and I don't know if they were legal or not according to the rules. However, I know those were to the back of the head, and instead of trying to justify it, he could have just been like, it was my fault, I was down on points, it was the heat of the moment, and I couldn't think clear because I just wanted to win. So it was my fault, I'm sorry Charles. And all could have been forgiven, but nah. He just couldn't admit it. So it just has to be him here. Plus, I'm not gonna get into it here, but his personal life is certainly very interesting. All the real ones, of course, know what I'm talking about. But yeah, at lightweight, it's Chandler. And moving forward, me and my subscribers will be preying on his downfall. Anyways, let's move on to welterweight. And at welterweight, you might expect me to nominate Bilal for this noble video. However, I don't really dislike Bilal that much. Bilal is just so boring and lame that it's actually hilarious, and that's why I kinda like the guy. However, it's another story when it comes to Ian Gary. And I know the public perception of Ian Gary has changed since the Shavkat fight, but what the fan base doesn't understand is that you gotta stand your base! And I'm standing me base on this guy. Ian Gary is the most unlikable guy in welterweight. And he's also one of the most unlikable guys in the UFC. And you guys know why. And if anyone is watching this, I'm playing a character, plus I'm talking about a different fictional Ian Gary that doesn't exist. Now that we got that out of the way, Ian Gary's a soy beta male. He painted up Neil Magny as a child abuser while he was fighting for custody over his children, or shortly before, I don't really remember exactly. But regardless, he made something out of nothing, and I believe Magny said, I have a son, so I'm used to giving out whoopings. And that's just a generic line. He's saying he's gonna whoop Ian Gary. So that was pretty messed up of Ian Gary. And another messed up thing is his relationship. Now, allegedly in GTA 6, Ian Gary took his wife's ex-husband's last name, and her ex-husband is his nutritionist, and he lives with them. And he has him on a vegan diet, which literally makes him into a soy boy. And then we also have the whole book situation to top it off. And these are all old news, by the way, and this is all alleged in GTA 6, and I'm playing a character. But besides that, he just has a lame personality. His response to Kobe was lame. Kobe Chaos Covington, don't rush me. Nah, it was just soy, bro. And on top of all that, he fought like a coward in the MVP fight. Then he said he beat him on the feet. Nah, MVP worked you on the feet. So in short, Ian Gary is soy, cringe, and delusional. But let's move on to middleweight. And obviously at middleweight we have Robert Whittaker. Terrible guy. Nah, I'm joking. He's one of my favorite fighters at middleweight. I of course have the Chinese champion, the dog Bender himself. And I actually used to be a fan of this guy on the come up. And he used to be pretty entertaining to watch. But when he became champion, he started having boring championship fights. We have the Vettori fight, the Cannonier fight, and not to mention the infamous Romero fight. All snoozers. And he just has a very unlikable personality to add on that. He paints his nails, he has cringe lines at the press conferences. I'm gonna leave him frozen, like Elsa. And then there's also the dog stuff, and the whole Duplessis thing. It's just too much, man. He has the credentials to be one of the most unlikable fighters in the UFC. So I'm sorry, Kenny Okoye, but I just had to put him here. Now, next up, we have light heavyweight. And at light heavyweight, I don't really dislike anyone specifically. A lot of people dislike Jamal Hill, but I actually appreciate the delusional heel role he takes. He just makes everything more entertaining, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Jamal Hill. But if I had to pick one though, for the sake of it, it would have to be Ankalaev. And again, I don't really dislike him. He's a great fighter. And people say he's boring, but he's not really that boring, to be honest. He doesn't really offensively grapple that much. And he has pretty slick boxing. However, he did refuse to fight Pereira outside Abu Dhabi or Saudi Arabia. And you just don't call the shots here, little bro. Alex Pereira's the champion, so you don't dictate where the fight is gonna take place. Plus, Ankalaev has pretty annoying fans. And I get that it's not really his fault. And to be honest, I don't really think he deserves to be in this video. It's just that I picked him because I had to pick one, okay? No disrespect to Ankalaev. Now, moving on to heavyweight, we have Aspinall here. Cause he's such a rude guy. I don't want to do business with him. Now, of course, it's John Jones. And you know how I feel about John Jones. I don't understand how he has fans. He has multiple failed tests, allegedly hit a pregnant lady with his car, allegedly put hands on his woman, allegedly, and his career is tainted by controversies and failed tests. But the worst thing he has done is of course ducking Aspinall. Now I'm joking, it's not the worst thing, but it's super annoying. The champ literally doesn't want to fight the interim champ, and he's desperately coming up with excuses. He hasn't fought anyone, Pereira is more deserving, he has 0 title defenses, but he does have a title defense. You duck. He defended his interim belt against Curtis Blades. And what kind of world are we living in where the interim champ has to defend his belt against another contender? He is undoubtedly next in line for a title shot. Before you got a title shot, you duck. You hadn't beat anyone. Tom is way more deserving than you were at that time. So stop ducking. You don't get to ride off in the sunset. You have to pay for your sins. John Jones, ladies and gentlemen, undoubtedly one of the most dislikable fighters in the UFC. But I think that's it for today, guys. If you enjoy my yapping, subscribe for more. Go check out my last video where I talked about Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria. But anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Did I trash your favorite fighter? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And also feel free to trash me in the comments. And also don't forget to share this to a Marab fan. And I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.